Welcome back to Dawn's Dirt, the podcast where we talk about food, farming, freedom, and the real life decisions that make or break a small farm. Today's episode is a really good one. I'm sitting down with James from Nine Pines Farm, a pastured poultry farm that is doing things intentionally and doing them very well. They also raise a special breed of pigs, and we get into the why behind their choices, not just the pretty Instagram version of farming. In this episode, we walk step by step through what it actually takes to build a small scale farm and why starting a small farm isn't weakness in agriculture, it's necessity. We talk about growing at the right pace, learning as you go, and building something that can actually last. We dig into marketing, relationship building with customers, and why connection matters just as much as production. We also have an honest conversation about treating your farm like a business, not a charity. Too many homesteaders and small farmers are losing money or subsidizing their farms with off-farm jobs because they aren't charging enough, don't know their numbers, or are letting ideology override reality. James and I talk about where ideology is helpful in farming and where it can actually hurt you. We also bring some balance to the conversation around our current food system. We talk about having grace and compassion because the system we have today exists largely because of consumer choices, not because farmers wanted it this way. If you're farming, homesteading, dreaming about starting, or wondering why numbers don't add up, this episode's for you. If you enjoy this conversation, please subscribe to Dawn's Dirt on whatever platform you're listening on. And it would be especially helpful to me if you would head on over to YouTube and hit subscribe there. That support allows me to bring you real, honest conversations like this one here. All right, let's dig in. So welcome to the show today. Could you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do? I'll be honest with you. I'm just looking at you. You've got your farmer hat on. It's got like the little things on the ball cap there. It looks well used. And so you look like a farmer for those that are just listening today. You look like a farmer. It's fantastic. So tell us a little bit about who you are.
Sure. You're correct. I am a farmer through and through. This is the name of my farm is Nine Pines Farm. I have about 3 of these hats that we had made. I need to have some more made because friends of mine always are like, "Hey, I want one of these hats. I'd like them. They're great." And so about me, let's see. My grandfather bought a farm in 1964, and he was more of a gentleman farmer. He made most of his living doing sales. He worked for Pepsi and things like that. But my father's the eldest of 6 boys. They grew up on that farm. They grew up working for a neighboring farm that's a very close family friend. My parents divorced when I was about 8 years old. So the summer times and weekends I spent with my father. He lived with my grandparents on that farm. That was one place that was always home to me. And my uncle picked up where my grandfather left off, and he farmed. So he mainly did beef cattle, he did row crops, and he made most of his money doing hay. So I was around, livestock, row crops, all that stuff. I probably I have 2 sons. I have 4 children. I have 2 sons. My younger son is the one that is pretty much identical to me. I guess it's retribution. If my Uncle John ever sees this, sorry, Uncle John. Because my son is exactly how I was, never left him alone, asked a million questions, got into things, played around with equipment, and just wanted to be around the farm all the time. So needless to say, it left a lasting impression on me. I grew up working on any kind of farm job I could, whether it was beef cattle. What I truly loved, I truly loved, and I still do to this day, was dairy. That's actually how I found you. I watched Tristan Swartzy. I've been following him for about 2 years. He's exactly the kind of farmer that I am. Tries to
He's
do it.
fantastic.
Yeah.
He's so fantastic. It was so fun to have him on the show. And
Yeah.
just like, because he's so much farmer. And I told him on the show, he reminds me of my uncle. And I just saw my uncle at the family Christmas on the weekend. And I said, I was talking to this farmer and the way his barn is set up and even hearing the noises, the tick, 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 tick of the pulsator and even him smoking his cigarette. Like I could just smell and hear, like if I close my eyes, I am back in my uncle's barn. And I think that's what is so popular about him, is because it's the nostalgia, right? And so sorry,
Yep.
I cut you off there, but
No,
yeah.
no, that's fine. I mean, that's the exact sentiment I have towards the guy. Uh, I forget what it was. I think he was part of starting that keep the lights on, save the family dairy, and he posted a couple times. I'm like, this dude's a character, and he does exactly how I would dairy. Um, but anyway, uh, so about me, I did that all through high school. My junior and senior year of high school, I actually worked at a dairy that had switched to milking 3 times a day. They no longer dairy, unfortunately. I mean, it's the pretty much the normal thing. Families just go out of it because they can't make a living at it anymore. Um, those were the Schweitzers. They were the kindest people. Mr. and Mrs. Schweitzer, if you ever see this, I want to thank you so much for your kindness when I was in high school. But I used to do their night milkings. They milked 3 times a day. And it said a lot because they had trusted me to do that. And, you know, I think they milked about 75 cows at the time. And I do all the feed mixing, put out the feed bunks, feed the dry cows and heifers, and then do the milking. They had a herringbone, double herringbone parlor, 6 and 6, and I loved every minute of it. And for myself, I in high school I decided to join the Navy. It was a pretty good prospect for myself. I joined the nuclear program, and when you were talking about the hearing the sounds and stuff, to me it's the smells. My recruiter actually picked me up after the milking to go to boot camp. So I was literally in jeans, a Grateful Dead T-shirt, and that's how I went to boot camp. And I've told this story many times to people.
Did he
uh,
comment on the smell? Because, like, if you've ever been in a dairy barn or if
yeah,
you've ever been around a dairy farmer, even if they shower sometimes, you're like, oof, you're a dairy farmer. I can smell
yep.
that, you know? We know it. So did he comment on your smell?
Not really, but it's funny because anybody that's ever been in the Navy, I went to Great Lakes in Chicago, and when you get there, you get off the bus, you take off your civvies, your civilian clothes, you put them in a bag, you seal them up, and then you're in a uniform until you get to your first duty station, which for me was in Charleston, South Carolina. And I'll never forget it. My roommate, a guy named Bobby Chapin, he was we I hadn't worn like jeans and a t-shirt for 2 3 months at that point. I'll never forget it. I had that bag and I opened it up, and the smell just hit you like a ton of bricks. And I was just like, he goes, "What the hell is that?" I said, "Oh man, that's a dairy. It's a mixture of silage, iodine, and shit." And he goes, "No wonder you joined the Navy, man. I'd be getting away from that too." I ended up throwing them away, but I mean, that just kind of illustrates like my passion for farming. I mean, I was homesick as soon as I opened up that bag. But I'll speed it up on the story part. So I did 9 years in the Navy. I was a nuclear machinist mate on submarines. I loved a lot about the Navy. It made me a lot of who I am. Looking back, it was God's plan. I always wanted to get into farming somehow, but he had to teach me a few things first, and one of those was how to work my hands, fix anything, make anything. Um, After the Navy, I stayed in the mechanical trades. I worked in a lot of nuclear power because it was pretty much what I did. I was pretty good at it. I was a good mechanic. Um, and then around 2016, um, my wife, we were expecting our fourth child. We lived in Burlington, New Jersey. Wasn't home. I grew up I grew up in northern Baltimore County and York County, Pennsylvania. So we wanted to get home with 4 kids. We wanted family support. I wanted I was very close with my grandparents. I wanted my children to know their grandparents. And I mean, if I'm being honest, I wanted to help too. But in 2016, um, we had the opportunity to buy the farm that I grew up on, and I was extremely emotionally attached to it. Um, Looking back, I'd have to say it was probably the Holy Spirit. Told my wife that that was not it. That was not it. She was adamant, um, very adamant. I was kind of heartbroken, but out of nowhere, um, she found this house that I had taken a job at Frito-Lay as a maintenance manager, and it was 3 minutes from the plant. And she says, "Hey, my mom's going to meet you. Go take a look at this house. Like something tells me there's something here." And it was a little 3 bedroom, 1 bathroom house with 4 kids. It's like that's not it, but at the same time, my wife and I have vision for things. We can see things and see the potential in them. And I got here. I get emotional when I tell this story.
It's okay.
Sorry.
No,
I got
it's
here.
good. Take your
Yeah,
time. It,
I got
and
here and I
I
walked
just
around. Yeah,
I just have to say this one thing before I'm sorry I'm cutting you off, but this is the thing that people need to understand is you're getting emotional because farming and agriculture is who you are as a human being. And I love that you are bringing the Lord and the Holy Spirit and direction and all of it into it. So like,
man.
let's do this.
Yeah. So, kind of to tee up this story, my grandmother on that farm that I grew up was probably the wisest person I ever met in my life. And um, she used to tell people, she grew up in Baltimore City. She used to tell people all she ever wanted was a tree. And God gave her a forest. And the farm I grew up on had this big apple tree. And when I came to our farm, it had this apple orchard, old abandoned apple orchard. And I knew this was supposed to be where I'm supposed to live and supposed to do, follow what God put me on earth to do. And so a month later, we signed a contract and we bought the place. And what originally started out as me just trying to feed my farming addiction, um, it wasn't an addiction at the time, but it was that dream. I think in June we moved in April. In June, I had bought some laying hens as peeps just because. And I think the following year, I, you know, I don't want to say I'm cheap. I'm frugal. There's a difference. Um, I literally Googled the cheapest way to raise meat chickens,
Okay.
and I found pastured poultry.
I love it. I love it.
Eh, Yeah, so that was in 2017, and July 4th, 2017 was the first time I put broilers on pasture. Um, I posted it on Facebook, this silly looking box thing with these little chickens, and my kids, we all had 4th of July shirts on, and I think I put something to the effect of like, you know, Happy Independence Day, you know, food something about food freedom, like being self-sufficient is freedom in and of itself, or something along those lines. And it was so prophetic because you know we raised a batch of 50, processed them. I didn't know how to process a chicken. I grew up around farming. I grew up around livestock. I'd never killed an animal like that. And so literally, my cousin, who's like a brother to me, he grew up on the farm with me. Um, he was the only person willing to help me. Not willing to help me, but he was the only one willing to do that. So we had this we stranded up lights. I borrowed a drum plucker and we slaughtered about 25 birds in 6 hours, and they still had pin feathers. And it was like the most ridiculous experience I've ever had. And it was like,
I can I
yeah,
love that. And that's a point that I'd like to the listeners to hear is like you you got these chickens, you didn't know what you were doing. You did it with like makeshift things. You farmerized it. There's such a big thing with farmerizing things, and you make things do. I was raising chickens in like tarp sheds this summer because
Yeah.
it was cheap, right? And you have to be frugal on a farm. And then you just bit off more than you can chew. And you made yourself swallow it. And maybe was it perfect? No, but that's not the point. You don't have to have perfectionism. You just have to do it. And you got great chicken at the end. I love that story. Hey friends, on Dawn's Dirt, we get real about growing food, farming, homesteading, living free, and digging into the stuff that actually matters. If you're loving the dirt we're dishing out, don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow on your favorite social media platforms. That's how we keep growing this community of badass, soil-covered, chicken-loving, freedom-chasing humans. Like and subscribe to me on Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, you name it. Come be part of the movement.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was kind of hooked. I think my wife was a bit like, okay, I guess we'll move on out of this phase. Not that she wasn't supportive. My wife is my biggest fan and like the glue in my house. But it was so, it was so funny just trying it out. And then it was like, oh, they have these other machines, other kind of pluckers. Oh, okay. And then it was, this. And so we did another batch. And then it was, well, let me see if I could sell it. And I remember my mother-in-law, I have a great relationship with my mother-in-law. She's hilarious. I'll never forget. I sat down, crunched the numbers. I'm a numbers guy. And I'm like, okay, I said like 30% profit. Cause I'm like, yeah, that's good enough. 30% profit. It came out to like $3.50 a pound just for a whole bird. And I remember she goes, nobody in York County is going to pay $3.50 a pound for a chicken. And I said, I don't know. I'm like, well, you haven't even eaten it yet. So she ate it and she was like, it was pretty good. She goes, who knows? So it started me just selling it to people. I was like a walking, talking billboard talking about it. And, um, you know, I have a lot more wherewithal than the average person. So to give you perspective of what my life was like in 2017 to 2019, I had left the job at Frito-Lay. It wasn't a good fit for me. I really liked the guys I worked with. It wasn't for me. So I went back to working with my hands at another place that was even closer. I mean, it was, instead of being 5 minutes, it was 3 minutes from home. They always had help wanted signs. And I'm like, this place either has horrible management or it's a hard job and dirty. And I said, well, I'm going back to work with my hands. I don't care about being dirty. I had a chief in the Navy that used to tell me, he goes, Cornwell, you're the only person I know that gets dirty when they take a shower. And I took it as pride. I said, thanks, chief. He's like, it wasn't a compliment. I'm like, oh, I took it as one. So I started working there. And at the same time, I was still doing my little farming startup thing. I think the second year we did 300 broilers and I did about 20 turkeys. Year after that, we went to, I think we did 1,000. I got to check my notes. I always tell the numbers and I get them off. But anyway, so I was working a full-time plus job, 60, 70 hours a week. My wife started homeschooling our children. So I had that job and doing the farm. Also, at the same time, I went back to school to get my MBA. I went to York College. And to be blunt, the only reason I did it was because I had GI Bill money. And I looked at it as a way to finance my farm. So I took every advantage of that. And if you are a veteran that paid that, do it, man. Don't make the time to do it. I didn't even utilize my full bill. I started late, but I pocketed a good amount of money for it and got a really good education. So for the MBA, I focused on marketing. I always ask myself, I'm like, my family, my uncle, for example, he never farmed full time. He always had an all farm job. now talking with him, I mean, he never wanted to do it full time. He just, you know, he said, I liked having the security of a job. The farm was extra money, um, you know, so he enjoyed it. But I wanted to do it through and through, 100%. I'm not supposed to be prideful, but I do tell people, I'm like, I farm full time, and I think it goes over the head of most people. They oh, okay, they just think that every farmer's the same, and I get that. It's, not everybody talks to farmers and understands what we do and how vastly different one farm is from the other. Um, but I ended up, really running with that education that I got, and I focused very heavily on marketing, just talking to people, doing stuff on Facebook, and then COVID happened, and I think I had a chest freezer full of, like, I started parting up chickens, realizing I know, people are too lazy to cut up a chicken themselves, and I tell that to people, like, just, it takes 2 seconds to cut a chicken up. Practice on it. It's okay. You got to cook it anyway. And so I had a whole chest freezer full of chicken when, like, COVID started, and I sold it in like 2 days. It was unbelievable, and people weren't even blinking at the price. Usually, it's like you kind of have to have this lead in, like, well, you'll have it prepared in your head. Well, our chicken's raised on pasture. We feed non-GMO feed. We do this. We do that. They weren't even asked. They didn't care. They're like, I don't care, and I still to this day have I think it was probably 5 or 6 people that bought most of that chicken. I think almost all of them are still customers of mine. Like, they've never gone back.
That's
So
what COVID did, actually. COVID actually really connected the dots between the farm and food and where our food actually comes from. If there's one positive from COVID, I think it's is that people started going, oh, where is my food coming from? Yeah, I'm so enjoying listening to you. Yeah, let's just keep
yeah,
going. I love hearing this story.
sure. Yeah. So it was, um, one thing after the other. COVID happened. My hours at work um, got drastically cut. I mean, to the point where they were saying, like, look, we might have to cut you under 40 hours. We'll guarantee you 30 so you can keep your benefits. I mean, I had kids, like health insurance and all that stuff. I mean, I was fortunate because I was, when I started my farm, I was financing it through another means. It's not like I never took a loan. I never really went into debt. So my farm was profitable pretty much from the beginning. And my hours were cut. I had applied for this grant through the state. I just called it COVID money. I don't know. And I didn't think I would get it. And so I applied for this grant, and I get a phone call. Hey, Mr. Cornwell, we'd like to congratulate you. You've been selected for the Fresh Food Financing Initiative. You've been awarded $90,000. And what it was for was a proper building for processing chicken. Um, you know, I used to kind of, I don't want to say I wasn't being transparent, but I always tried to shy away. I didn't want people knowing I was processing chicken outside. I didn't want them to think that that it wasn't sanitary. I mean, we took really strong precautions for that. But also I wanted somewhere. I mean, the more you get into farming, you realize that tidiness and having a place for things is of the utmost importance. And I'll admit it, I'm kind of a slob when it comes to like my tools, and it's something I'm trying to focus better on getting places for things. And while you're building a farm, you don't know the best place to run water lines. You don't know, well, should I fence this section off for hogs, or should I do this? Should I do that? So you're learning as you go. Well, we got that grant. I I spent it, and I was a penny pincher. I mean, I still can't believe what I actually bought with that money. It was 2 walk-in freezers. Um, it paid for my scalder, my plucker. I mean, it was literally a gift from God. And to this day, that grant was what propelled me into farming full time. As people that do pastured poultry, if you do turkeys, it's kind of turkeys are a little bit longer commitment, and I just call it turkey money. Now, after Thanksgiving, it's like, man, I owe $15,000 to the feed mill, and you get all that when all the dust settles. Well, in the end of 2020, the dust settled. Um, I had the reimbursement from everything, and the way it worked, it was a reimbursement grant. So I put out all the money. I took advantage of. I cashed out. I cashed out a retirement IRA that I had because that's how I financed it. I took advantage of the what they call the CARES Act. I didn't have any penalties, so I took out that money. When all the dust settled, I had enough money to pay off my house and my farmland. So I prayed about it, talked to my wife about it, and I said, look, we made the same amount of money off the farm as we did my full-time job. It's either quit farming or quit my job. I can't do both anymore, you know? And she said the most encouraging words to me. She goes, well, you can always get a job if you have to. And that's all I needed. I felt bad leaving the place I worked. I loved working with those guys. They were fantastic. I loved the job, as dirty as it was. I freaking loved that job. I would do electrical stuff. I'd do welding. I'd do machining. I did all the stuff that I'd love to do, and I got paid for it. And, it's kind of funny because I just went with my gut, and I said, all right, I'm doing it. At the time, I only had about 8 acres, or I think for the farmette that I bought was, I think it's like 8.5 acres. And I'm like, yeah, I think we can make enough to survive on that. And I got another opportunity to grow broilers at scale. Like, I think that year was 3,000, and sell them live. So I took that, and I'm like, I need more land. Well, I ended up actually leasing, and I still to this day still lease the farm that's adjacent to where I used to work. I lease it from my former employer. And, so now we've gone up and down with our broiler production. The highest we did 12,000 one year. We actually only did about 3,000 last year because I had projects that I wanted to do. I wanted to get caught up on some infrastructure, and I mean, it was. I'm pretty much sold out of chicken at this point, December, which really kind of stinks, but I'm not worried about it. I'd like to grow stuff on pasture, but I am gonna do what I call a modified raising of birds. I'm gonna raise them in the barn. It's not stocking heavily. I want to do some fodder with them and bed them down and chopped hay. I'm past the point of being idealistic with raising livestock. I mean, I do the best that I can. The fact is, I'm known around where we live. I'm known for our poultry, and when I don't have any to sell, it's and I'm
For
open with that.
sure.
Yeah,
And I think that's so important for people to hear is that you can start off with these ideologies at a small scale, but once you get bigger and bigger and bigger, and it gives us a little bit of grace actually for the big farmers and why they do what they do,
absolutely.
because sometimes they have to. And I think all agriculture is important, but I especially feel like the smaller farm and like you and like many other farms, we need to get back to that. And the way we're going to get back to that is by direct marketing. And you're right. If you don't have it, you can't sell it. And so you have to come up with creative ways on your farm to do things and do things well. So you're still caring very much for your chickens. You're giving them the great foods and the things that they need, but you're just going to do it in a little different way that will help you scale it just that little bit more so that you can just service and help and build bigger communities. I love that.
Yeah, it's um, you look at things differently when your paycheck depends on it. Um, and I guess I rely heavily from a marketing perspective using Facebook. I don't know. It's funny. I think it's an age thing. I'm 43. So a lot of it is an age thing, but I follow a lot of other farms, and we also do pork, and pork is. I love my pigs, and we fair to finish. I have a market for piglets. I have a market for pork chops. I've been doing some kind of crazy crosses. I kind of bought into the Mangalitsa fad, and I don't mean that in an insulting way. Mangalitsas do not fit a production model, unless you really have the infrastructure and pasture for it. You have to raise them differently, but they make a fantastic cross. And
Can you
um,
can you explain? So I'll be honest with you, I don't know what that is. So can you
oh,
just
okay,
explain that in a little bit more detail? Because I don't know.
sure.
Like, educate me, please.
Sure. So, if you've never heard or seen a Mangalitsa pig, they're very unique. I think the only other pig that might be a little bit more unique is a Michon. They're from China. The Mangalitsa pig was commissioned by um, some royalty guy in Hungary, and they it actually in Hungarian Mangalitsa means woolly pig. So these pigs have very curly, very coarse hair. And you got to understand, this is at a time when animal fats were prized. You know, we didn't have frying oils. Like people used lard for cooking. Um, the Mangalitsa makes some damn fine lard. I mean, it is super pure as a driven snow white. Um, it's I've never when you grew up eating pork that was from the grocery store, you never liked the fat. I never liked the fat on a pork chop. It was rubbery. When you have the fat on a Mangalitsa pig, it melts in your mouth. It's it's a next level thing. The problem, they're a large pig. So if you feed them like a normal pig, where you choice feed them or even feed them grain every day, they put on a lot of lard. Now, when you have a market hog, you know, there's going to be a higher percentage of fat than meat. Whereas people are
Okay.
okay, I get this hog. If I raise mine a little on the larger side. I'm usually shooting for hanging weights of around 225 to 230 pounds, and you know I don't know the actual percentages, but half of that is going to be lard. It's going to be fat. People don't want to eat just fat; they want meat and fat. So with the Mangalitsa, um, they take a longer time to grow out when raised properly. Like they truly are a pig that can survive on forage alone. It takes a while, but they make some extremely fine quality meat, like pork that looks like beef. Highly marbled, the fat quality. Um, so I'm crunching the numbers, and I'm like, I don't think I can get the premium that this demands. Raising pigs this way demands a premium price. I I I can't market it to the average consumer around me, you know. Um, so I started breeding pigs. I'm like, all right, well, let's cross them. Get the hybrid vigor. When you get two different pigs that are from purebred lines and you cross them, that's where you get the Cornish cross. You know, um, you get the hybrid vigor. They grow faster. They grow bigger. So over time, I'm only on this spring. We will have our third generation. So most of the Mangalitsa, it's only like 25% of their genetics are there, but the things like the marbling, the meat quality, the tenderness, they're still in my pigs that I breed. And I have to take it that way. I have to go the route of, doing high quality pork because I mean, I charge about $12 a pound for my pork chops. Um, you know, and I have people that, you know, call me like, "Hey, when do you have this back in stock? When do you have this back in stock?" I'm working on it.
Well,
So
and that's just it. Like people need to understand that like when you're doing farm to table, it's a better product. It's like it's just a better product. And so you have to pay for that. And when you're going
right.
farm direct, people are always like, "Oh, it's not the same price as the grocery store." Well, it's not the same product. If you like grocery store, I used to say it all the time. I was a tomato farmer for many years and people used to say, "Oh, your tomatoes are expensive." I said, "My tomatoes are actually good. They taste like tomatoes, not like cardboard." And they'd say, "Well, they're really expensive." And I said, "That's fine. Go to the grocery store and get those tomatoes." Like we're talking apples to oranges here. Yes, they're both tomatoes, but it's not the same product. And people need to realize that when you are going farm to table, you are just you're also supporting that farmer. That farmer needs to be paid something. People say, "Oh, I get my eggs for $2 a dozen." And I say, "Oh, well, that's really nice that someone's subsidizing your food bill. Like that's very generous and kind of you."
Absolutely. You know, I have friends around here, really close friends that also do pastured poultry. Um, we always laugh, we joke. I have a love hate relationship with laying hens. Um, I have 800 laying hens now. Um, I don't have an issue getting rid of these eggs. A lot of people around, and I love this. I love that people are getting their own chickens, doing it, and then they put a sign out because they're swimming in eggs, $2 a dozen. And every time I see those, I try to say it as kindly as I can. I was like, "You're paying people to take your eggs." "Well, no, I'm not." I'm like, "Yes, you are." I'm like, nobody knows. Well, I don't want to say nobody knows chicken math better than I do, but I know it very well. I have a spreadsheet for cost for tracking my cost on layers. I know to the penny what it costs me to produce a dozen eggs. And um, you know, the incentive's there, but it's always like one of those things. Like you have to treat your farm like a business. At the end of the day, it's a business. If you are here, if you don't treat it as such, you're going to lose it. You're going to be hemorrhaging money, and it is super easy to lose money.
Are you sitting on a farm or homestead that could be making you real money? Tired of guessing on how to market your products? I owned a 36,000 square foot greenhouse. I ran 2 farm to table stores. I had 30 people on payroll. I brought in $2.5 million in gross revenue in 2020, selling farm goods directly to customers. Now I teach farmers and homesteaders how to make money and save money off the land they already have. Whether you're selling eggs, beef, produce, baked goods, or anything in between, if you want to get into direct marketing and grow your sales, I'm the girl for you. Stop leaving money on the table and start putting it into your bank account. Join me at Dawn's Dirt Business Coaching and let's make your farm pay you back. Absolutely. You're 100% correct. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing is I'm teaching people how to treat it like a business,
Right.
how to do the chicken math. People talk about chicken math. "Oh, I got 1 chicken, I got 20 chickens. I love my chickens." And I'm like, "Yeah, but how much did they cost you? How much is the feed? How much did are you charging for your eggs? How much do you charge for your meat?" Like you have to know your numbers and you're right. You have to treat it like a business because if you don't, you're right. You have to have an off-farm job to subsidize your really expensive hobby. And that's the part
Yep.
about homesteading that I see all these homesteaders online and they're doing all their things. And really, they don't know their numbers and they're hemorrhaging money. And what's the point in doing it if it's not going to be a business at the end of the day? There's no point to doing it.
Right. Right. And you bring up a really good point with like the whole homesteading thing, because I mean that's kind of where I started. I guess I don't know. I guess 2017. Like when I heard the word homesteader, I thought of like Little House on the Prairie. I guess back to that whole idealistic thing. Like that's kind of what I've always wanted to do. But then it was like, oh, I have a very entrepreneurial spirit, and like, oh, I might be able to actually have my fun stuff pay for itself. And like the drive is there for the homestead stuff. And I tell this because I have a lot of people that reach out to me. They hear, "Oh, you process your chicken on farm. Um, can we learn? Can we do this?" And I used to encourage people to come help us slaughter on, yeah, yeah, come on over, like come help us, come learn. And when when you have put all the time and effort into doing it, you realize how important your time is. Um, you know, I we slaughter. So this year, our average for slaughter, we slaughter between 300 and 350 at a time. We had it up to about 1.2 birds per minute. That was
Wow.
including that's setup, kill to chill, and cleanup. That all that time. When you bring just one person into that line and you have to show them, you're lucky if you're half that. And it's not I don't have time to help you. I don't have time to do this, but it is. It's you want people. So now what I do is I tell people, look, if you need your chickens processed, bring them here. If you want to watch, go ahead. I'll talk to you while I work. But, if you want the hands-on experience, I'll lease you my equipment and you learn how I did. And I don't say that from a way of, oh, it was harder when I started. I don't say it from that at all. I say it as that's how you truly learn. You just get out there and do it.
It's the
So,
4-H model. Learn to do by doing. I was in 4-H when I was a kid. Learn to do by doing. And so that's the thing. You bite off more than you can chew. And you've done this as a farmer. And I love how you've walked us through step by step how you've grown your farm and how you've done things step by step. And you learn to do by doing. So now I do have a couple of questions for you,
sure.
just to end off the end here. But so my first question is, where do you market? Like, so you say you use Facebook, you've done the marketing, and marketing is so important. That's one of the things I teach in my coaching courses. But where do you sell? Like, do you sell at farmers markets? Do you just sell all online? Do you have a home store? Like, where do you sell these animals?
So I have it broken down kind of. I have my wholesale and then I have my retail. So for retail, what I do is we're in the process of actually building our farm store in our barn. Um, right now, what people do is we do have an online store that people can buy. That's if they want to do it with a credit card, that's what they do. They can order it that way. We offer delivery, but most of the time, my goal is to get people to come to the farm. Um, you know, I don't feel ashamed saying like if I could just get somebody to come to get into my driveway, I could sell them something. And even if it's just a dozen eggs, it doesn't matter. Um, so that's probably about 60%. I don't know. It might be 50% of our business. The other 50% is wholesale. Um, I sell eggs and chicken at a local, I guess, just health food store. They have natural products. They have a small freezer section, but I sell them eggs. I have another small market in the town that I grew up in with my mother. It used to be a pizza shop. The girl, I have a great relationship with her. She started. It was basically an open air farmers market, and then took a huge gamble and opened up a little shop, and it's beautiful. She sends me an order on Saturdays on our way to church. I drop off her order. She actually sells more of our eggs than anywhere else, and she sells all of our pork, all of our turkey, all of our chicken, all the cuts, everything. And then we also have another wholesale outlet. It's called Delivered Fresh, and we started doing business with them about, crying out loud, it's been 3 years now. Um, they service like northwest or northeastern Pennsylvania, and they have a farm store, but they do delivery. They have an online thing. They have routes. They used to do chicken, process it, and sell it, but they're 15, 20 years older than I am, and they didn't want to do it anymore. Like, hats off to them. I get it. So they wanted to focus on their delivery service, and that's a big benefit of being an APA member. They had an email to APA like, "Hey, we're in Pennsylvania. We're looking for a supplier for pastured chicken and possibly other proteins." And I think I emailed them back.
What's APA?
APA,
What's APA?
the American Pastured Poultry Producers Association.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll credit APA with a lot of our success. Just it's a network of like-minded, independently driven people that want to raise poultry on pasture. They cover everything from it's kind of like a forum, but it's like through email. They have a conference every year. I've only gone to one conference. I'm trying to budget this year to take the family on a trip and also go to the conference next year because you just network with people and it's fantastic. Um,
I love
but
I love that your family holiday revolves around farming. And that's so true of every farmer. Like your family holiday revolves around farming. When I took my kids on holidays too, sometimes we always ended up on a farm because when you're a farmer, it's in your blood. It's who you are. It's what you're interested. It just doesn't separate just because you go on a holiday. It's all about,
yeah,
farming.
yeah. Kind of back to your question about the marketing thing. I started doing a thing called Farmer Fridays, and it was very successful. We got a lot of followers, and I would just basically turn the camera on and just start. I call it like diarrheaing knowledge. Um, like I know so much about farming and what I like to do. I just like to share it with people, and we did that for a while, and that was a huge marketing driver for us. And then I ran out of time, didn't have time to do it, but I started that's about 2 weeks ago. I was like, all right, I got to start doing this again, and so we started doing it again. So we kind of went about 2 to 3 years with, and this is from a marketing perspective, this is do not do this, but we've relied heavily on our word of mouth, but we have a very good reputation and word of mouth. I'll say it, word of mouth marketing is the best. It's the highest quality marketing you can get. So I'm basically trying to reinvest in that, if that makes sense, to start
Sure.
educating people. It's so important to educate people about food production because
Yes.
nobody. It seems like nobody. I don't know if it's they don't care. I think honestly, what I really think it is people, society and culture today. We are so wrapped around things and we don't have time for this. We don't have time for this. I get it. Like everybody's busy, but the one thing that sustains you, water and food. Like calm down, slow down, and think about what you're eating. What is fueling your body? You know, I I try to
For
say it as
sure.
kindly as I can, but it's like it's to the point where it's like I feel like I need to scream it from the rooftops now.
Well, and that's the thing. I've been calling out our food system for years, that in the name of health and safety, in the name of bureaucracy, in the name of all of it, like we need to know where our food comes from. And if you're only relying on a grocery store, that system is fragile in many, many ways because you're relying on large scale farms to do their large scale thing, to sell to large scale warehouses. And if there's any kind of break in that chain or something like that, like we need to take our food system back into our own hands. We need to control where our food comes from. We need to shake the hand of the farmer that feeds us. We need to have build that relationship. And if things ever went sideways, if the bank ever crashed, now hopefully I'm wrong, but if the bank ever crashed or things went sideways, food is a commodity and you really want to know your farmer then. Just like during COVID, you emptied out a whole chest freezer of chicken just like that because people were afraid of where their food was coming from. It's happened once. It potentially could happen again, and we need to change our food system.
Agree 100% there. Uh, it's I've actually I've listened to quite a few of your podcasts. I did some morning chores and I was listening to the one where it must be pretty recent, but you were talking about like learn how to grow some of your own food and like I can't encourage people enough to do that. Like get your kids involved, make it fun, like make it a challenge. Like okay, you know, just just to do it and learn and enjoy it and reap the benefits from it. Like if you've ever grown a tomato in a pot, they're still better than a tomato that you get at a grocery store. The ones at the store they taste like vines because they pick them when they're not right. You know,
Yeah.
and
Well,
they
and
ripen them with
hearing you
gas.
exactly, right? And hearing you talk about like we started off the hour with you talking about your experience on your grandfather's farm. Like, opening up the bag and smelling the nostalgia that was in the bag, like it's just becomes a part of who you are. And so if you're able to do that with your children and give them that experience, those are memories, core memories that they will take on later in life. And maybe they'll want to be a farmer. Maybe they'll want to get into agriculture. Maybe they'll want to get into our food system. But if you're so far removed from it, if you've only ever lived in a city and like I had someone come to the farmer's market this year. I brought a live chicken to the farmer's market and I put it there. And there was this older woman. She was probably in her 50s or 60s. She said, "I've never seen a chicken before." And I'm like, what? Like, to me,
Yeah,
that just boggles my mind how disconnected we've come from our food system. And we just need to get that back. And we, the people, never mind our government, it doesn't matter.
yep,
We, the people, can make choices to do things differently.
absolutely. Yeah, it's um, I think like part of my, I guess, marketing strategy for this coming year, because we have the farm, is I need to incorporate some kind of time or a day a week where I allot about an hour, maybe two. Um, a lot an hour, but expect two because I could talk.
I love it.
Um, you know, just to like kind of do a tour and let people see it. That was one of my biggest selling points to people that were like, oh, it's so expensive. I used to go out, if you head west from us about half an hour, it's all really rocky clay soil and it's all orchards. It's all apple and cherry orchards. So I used to go out and buy feed apples for the hogs. Just, it's fun feeding apples to pigs. They love it.
It's
And,
fun.
so I'd buy literally a whole orchard bed, 25 bushels of apples at a time. I got them for like next to nothing. I'd pay like $100, and then I would start bagging them and trying to sell them. And I'm like, wait a minute, let's have people do it. Like $5 fill a bag, and it more than paid for itself. And I had an older gentleman stop by, and he was getting apples, and I said, hey, I've got chicken for sale. Would you like some pasture raised chicken? And he goes, what's that? I'm like, well, we raise our birds outside on pasture. He goes, well, I buy organic at Giant. He goes, how much? He goes, I'll try it. How much is it? And I told him, I forget what it was at that time. And he goes, whoa, I don't know if I can afford that. And I said, I know how the food system works. I said, you buy organic chicken? Do you buy Nature's Promise from Giant? It's a, grocer around here. He says, yeah, that's what I buy. I said, you want to see where your chicken's grown? Why? Hey, what do you mean? I said, go down the road a half mile, turn right on Beesecker, and drive about 1.2 miles. You'll see a farm there. It says, and this is not a knock towards his farms. I don't do that
No, no,
anymore.
no, not at all. Not at
But
all.
I told him, I said, look, there's a farm over there that does Coleman organic chicken. I said, if you go by there, and it was in the daytime, I said, if you go by there and you see a chicken outside, I'll give you one for free. Said, what do you mean? I was like, organic used to have in its requirements, an aspect of animal welfare where free range comes from. Free range means has access to the outdoors. Well, anybody that's raised poultry, chickens don't really like, they're agoraphobic. They don't like open spaces because of hawks, because of predators. Those chickens don't go outside. So I told him, I'm like, look, go there. I said, that's where your chicken's coming from. It's grown right there. And I said, you'll notice there's a sign. You can't go look and touch those chickens. I said, if you want one of my chickens, come back in 2 weeks. I'll let you pick it out and I'll process it for you. And so he took me up on it. He went there and he goes, all right, I'll try it out, and I sold him a chicken. And, it's like, that's sometimes that's what you have to do when you're selling direct to consumer. You kind of have to have like a come to Jesus moment with people at times. Like,
For sure.
yeah, this isn't just some blob of cells that is produced in the back. Like this is a living, breathing organism. And, do you really want to eat stuff that's mass produced where it's truly a commodity? It's the only way that you can adjust the pricing is adjust your input costs. That's how commodity farming works. It's all about
For
the
sure.
input costs. So
And I have to add into this, it is not the farmer's fault. That farmer down the road is farming to the best of his abilities. He's doing what he needs to do for the pricing, for the pricing that he's getting for his chickens to make his farm work. You know whose fault really it is?
the
The
consumer.
consumer's fault. It's the consumer who's making the decision to just go to the grocery store, and the grocery stores are paying the farmers not a fair price most of the time, and, the farmers are getting pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed into this way of farming, and it's we the consumer, we the people, it's our fault that it's like that. It is not the farmer's fault, and I think that's so important for people to hear. It actually bothers me when people say, "Oh, factory farming, factory farming, factory." I don't fault those farmers. I don't love it, but I do not fault them. They are just doing what they need to do to make their farm survive. And it is not their fault. It's the consumers, and it's the way our food system has gone. It's the system's fault. It's people's fault. It's us as a collective society. It's their fault. It's not the farmer's fault. Stop blaming the farmers.
Yep, I couldn't agree with you more. It's that is the hardest when you're describing when I'm describing to people what we do and how we farm. That is that's the that's the easy route to go. Oh well, we don't do it this way. Like that's the easy route, and I try never to go down that route. I try never. Because
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. Everybody that does this is a livelihood. They're doing the absolute best that they can. They want to do the best. Nobody ever goes to work wanting to do a horrible job.
No. Well,
So
and I used to do it too. People would have, I did it at farmers markets all the time. I knew that my competition, my biggest competition, they were buying their tomatoes from the biggest warehouse in the province. So the same tomatoes that would go to every grocery store. And I would watch those tomatoes walk through the farmers market for less money than what I could grow and sell them for. And I sometimes took bags of my tomatoes and I walked up to those customers that I saw those tomatoes in a bag and I said, I would like to give you a bag of tomatoes and I would like you to go home and do a taste test and let me know next week what you thought of those tomatoes. And sure enough, they would come back and they say, your tomatoes are not the same. And I said, well, welcome to my booth. I'm the farmer.
yeah, no. The one last thing about marketing I'd like to add to this. So I used to kind of bite my tongue. Um, we started, and I looked at it more of as a marketing thing than a sales thing. That's the other thing. If you're doing direct to consumer farming, you got to understand the difference between marketing and sales. So two totally different things. So I would do some markets here and there, and I got so tired of doing it to the point I actually just I called the one girl. I love doing the market. I love talking to people. I used to I was kind of known. I would take a Weber grill and just be like, okay, literally just look in the freezer. Okay, what do I have most of? Oh, I've got a bunch of tomato basil chicken sausage. I'll take that, and I'd offer it as samples. And next thing you know, I had no more tomato basil chicken sausage because everybody bought it. Well, it got to the point where I just couldn't do markets anymore. I was exhausted. I'd lug, you know, 300 pounds of meat. I might sell half of it. Um, and I was like, I kind of lost track of my goal, which was to get people to my farm. So I started, you know, when I said I bite my tongue, like I actually say it now. Um, and I apologize to those that all their sales are from farmers markets. I refuse to do farmers markets. I think they're a good way for people to get their foot in the door, to get your name out there. But the notion that somebody that makes their living off the land and is married to the land, or a husbandman, animal husbandry, there's a reason they call it husbandry because you are married to your livestock. The notion that I have to raise these animals, process them myself or have them processed, store them, take them to a place in the hope that I sell it is preposterous. Like, come to the farm. Now, I will always support farmers that go to farmers markets. And I think farmers markets are a fantastic thing. But for my farm, nope, I don't do them. I can't do it.
For sure. And you know what? That's amazing. Like I built my business off of farmers markets. I did all the farmers markets, but you're right. It is a ton of extra work. It is a ton of extra labor. It's a ton of like bringing something somewhere and then it's a rain day and you picked all these tomatoes and then you hope you sell them for sure. Like
Yeah.
I understand where you're coming from 10,000%. Whereas if you can just go straight to the farmer and get your food, like that's even better. You're right. It takes you back to the farm. And you know how in life hindsight is always 2020?
Mhm.
I can honestly say that looking backwards, I should have done more marketing. I should have done more social media. I should have done more connecting the people to my farm. Come on out, come on out, come on out, instead of focusing all of my eggs into the farmer's market basket. But that is hindsight 2020. It served a purpose. It got me out there. It did lots of things, but hindsight 2020, if I could go backwards, which I can't, and it's okay. Now I'm teaching people, that is one of the big changes I would have made. And so
Right.
you're not wrong. You're not
Yeah.
wrong. I have one last question
Sure.
that I've been wanting to ask this whole episode. And we'll end off with this because we're at the top of the hour. So you've talked a lot about your wife and you've talked a lot about, the Lord and the Holy Spirit. I would like to ask the question, how does your wife and the Lord play a role in your farm? Because in
Mm.
my opinion, strong marriages, I'm divorced, but in my opinion, strong marriages and husbands and wives being a team is the backbone and the epitome with the Lord. The Lord owned my farm, right? And so how does that play a role on your farm? Let's end it off with that.
Sure. Um, well, to start off on my answer, I'll just say I grew up in the church, but I was never so that I didn't believe, but I didn't understand the spiritual side of Christianity. So for me personally, in the past 2 years, I've grown incredibly strong in my faith. Um, I read my Bible more, and to be totally honest with you, I feel that my wife actually led me that way more. Um, she was she was similarly raised in the church, went on and off. Um, I guess it's probably been 5 or 6 years ago. She was baptized. I was baptized when I was 14 years old. I did it because it was what you do when you grow up in a Southern Baptist church. Um, and as I took on the farming aspect, I started really, you have a lot of time by yourself. And you can either do one of two things. You can either listen to music or podcasts, which I do, or I had never considered the notion that my thoughts with myself is also time with God. So I literally I had an epiphany that one time I was taking pigs to be processed and I was thinking about the end of my life, whenever that may be. And I remember like, I need to pull over and pray. And I felt this feeling that I don't have to pull over and pray. Like, I don't know where it says in the Bible. I'm working on being better at knowing where things are and saying them. But, um, you know, always be in conversation with God. Like he always hears you. He's omnipotent. So, and
Yeah.
from that moment on, it I had a whole different perspective of it. And then, so it's in the past 2 years, I've had tremendous growth in faith, and I pray daily. When you ask about the relationship between my wife and the Lord, um, the past year I've been praying more and more to be a better father, be a better husband to my wife. My wife gives more than I do, and it's not right. I'm trying to be better at that. Um, but literally, she's the glue that holds my household together. Um, she's my eviscerator for chickens. she's
Right, and so you're working together as a
yeah.
team, and I think that's where I wanted to go with this is your wife part of the team? Are you doing this together? Are you doing your farming? And how does the Lord, your wife, and your farm all fit together in a puzzle?
Yeah, you said it. You said it. You said your farm was the Lord's farm. Um, I shifted that mindset. Somebody randomly came and or called and asked if they could come see our farm, and I said, sure. It's not really mine; it's God's. Like, who am I to tell you no? And when you have that shifted perspective, things become a lot easier. Um, I've told people, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, I would farm for free. I would, because I love everything about farming. It doesn't matter what it is. Um, and I forget what it was. I was getting meat together for a guy that helps us out, and he won't take cash payment. He was like, I'll just take some meat. Like, all right. And I'm getting this meat together. He's like, well, give me whatever you got that isn't selling. Okay. So I'm selling him wings, and I'm giving him wings and legs. He goes, oh man, these are my favorite. And it dawned on me. I said, you know what? I am farming for free, because I am doing this. Like, I, I, I finally realized that this is my calling in life. My calling is to feed people and to educate people about farming. And I am doing it for free because this is God's. Like, he's the one that provided this. Yeah, I had to work hard and everything, but this is how I serve. And I'll never forget that. Like, that feeling when I came out of the freezer, gave him that meat. I wanted to like sit there and like explain to him about, like, I had this epiphany. My faith has really grown in the past couple of years. And you know, it's like every day I realize more and more how I'm, pursuing what my dream is actually what I'm supposed to do. Um, I I've at times thought that the whole farming venture, I was being selfish because it's what I wanted to do, but um, there's too many things that have happened, for our farm and for my family and for my own faith, that to me to think otherwise. So it's kind of like, all right, I guess I'll embrace it and go full force for the Lord, and that's what I'm doing.
I love it. I love it, and your farm will grow tenfold because when you do it for the Lord, it's not for you. It's
Right.
it's for his kingdom. I love that. So thanks so much for being on the episode today. I really enjoyed this episode. I really hearing you talk about like all the steps of how you grew your farm and the tick-tactician and the numbers and all the different things. So where can people find you?
Sure. Probably the best place to find us is actually on Facebook. I post there almost exclusively, and it's Nine Pines Farm. Nine Pines Farm 717 is our handle. You can find us on Google, Nine Pines Farm. We also have ninepinesfarm.com. That's where you can see you know, our website, and it has the quintessential uh, direct to consumer farm thing with nice pictures and what we do and why we do it. And that's also where our online store is. Unfortunately, we get asked a lot of times. We do not ship anything. That's a whole other venture. That my job is to feed York County and people
Yeah,
around in York County. So if you're
I
visiting,
love it.
stop by.
I love it. I love it. Maybe I'll plan a trip to your farm or something. I don't know.
I'd love to
I,
have
I
you.
love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. We'll do a little episode. We'll do like a Facebook Live or something like that. That'd be
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
if people see this, if they want to follow us, that's something I'm trying to work on. I'm trying to get more followers, and I think that's kind of the whole. I started doing Farmer Friday. I would post a 6-minute video, like, oh man, that's really long. It'd take so long to upload it. So instead of doing, I'm going to do my Farmer Fridays on Friday live, and then during the week, I have little snippets that I talk about. So they're longer videos, but just little snippets at a time. It seems to work better. So,
yeah.
yeah.
I love it. Amazing. Yeah. Well, thanks so much for your time today. Thanks for being on the show. Really appreciated this conversation. And yeah, looking forward to seeing where your farm goes next, with the Lord at the helm of it. So
Amen.
appreciate
Yeah.
it.
Thank you. It's been great.